बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम। हम वॉलंटरी वाइंडिंग अप का प्रोसेस देख रहे हैं एंड वी हैव जस्ट फिनिश्ड मेंबर्स वॉलंटरी वाइंडिंग अप. नाउ वी विल सी the process of creditors winding up. So as we have seen that in section 352 it has been stated that the main difference between the members voluntary winding up and a creditors winding up is the declaration of solvency. So if a company is not in a position to pass a resolution of its solvency, then the creditors have the right to move the resolution for winding up of the company, and they can jointly convene a meeting, and they can pass a resolution to the effect that company is unable to pay their debts. So they move a resolution for the winding up of that company. So the purpose of having such an arrangement or such a power with the creditor is to that the management might be not in a position to pay the debts, and yet they continue default and they continue with the company. And since company is a once it is in the process of doing business and it is making losses, then it is not in a position to make profit, but there has to be certain expenditure, and as long as there are expenditures, the company might make a more loss and lose its properties, its assets and cash in hand. So to avoid such a situation, the creditors have the right to proceed to have a voluntary winding up on their behalf. Section 361 states that the provision contained in section 355 to 369 both inclusive shall apply in relation to creditors winding up. So we have seen above section from section 355 to 360. Now so to pursue the creditors voluntary winding up, the company shall issue notice of the meeting of the creditors within 14 days of the meeting of the company, where the company shall propose to voluntary wind up the company. So suppose if the meeting of the shareholders of the company is proposed to be held on 1st June, then the creditors meeting has to be called before 14th June, and notice to this effect has to be issued by the company to the creditors of the company. And subsection B requires that such notice has to be issued to the creditors before the 7 days of the actual date when the shareholders propose to hold such a meeting. And then to fulfill the requirement of the notice of a public notice, such notice has to be published in one English and one Urdu newspaper, and at least in one issue each of a respective language having wide circulation. So after the publication, the notice of such a meeting has also to be sent to the SECP, the relevant registrar in which the company office is situated, because we have different offices of company registration in all Pakistan. So on the meeting of the creditors, the directors will make all the disclosure regarding the affairs of the company, the detail of assets and liabilities of the company. Then there has to be a list of all the secured and unsecured creditors to whom the company owe the debts, and then also there has to be a detail of securities and the estimated amount of the claims to be laid before such a meeting, and the directors will also be required to put forth the information they think which has to be given to the creditors. Then also one of the director has to be appointed as the chairman of such a meeting, and to preside that meeting, that director will be intimated and he will attend such meeting, and if any contravention is made in compliance of this section, a level 1 penalty is proposed under subsection 4 of section 362. Then as per section 363, the company in its separate meeting of the shareholders shall pass the resolution of the voluntary winding up, and then at the same time will nominate a person who has already given his consent in advance to be appointed as a official liquidator. And in a separate meeting of the creditors, they also have a right to choose one of the person who will act as a liquidator of the company. But under subsection 2, it has been stated that if there is a difference of opinion between the members meeting and the creditors meeting, then creditors shall have a preferential right that their nominee of liquidate, the person to whom the creditors have nominated, he will have precedence over the choice of the shareholders. However, there is an exception given that if the directors or the members of the company consider that such an appointment may prejudice their rights, so they can approach the court and file an appropriate application before the court telling them that they are not ready to accept the nomination of a liquidator who has been proposed by the creditors, and in that case it will be for the court to decide that who is the relevant person. Now the court will decide and appoint the liquidator, and such nomination or appointment by the court will be binding on the parties. Then in a case if either of the parties do not nominate a liquidator, then the other party's proposal shall be final. Like if the creditors would not nominate, the members' choice will be the person to act as a liquidator, and vice versa. If the members appoint such person and creditors would not, then members' choice will prevail. Then subsection 5 gives a choice to the liquidator to resign from the office, but he has to apply to the court for explaining his disability to perform the services for the liquidation proceedings, and it is only after the satisfaction of the court that the court is satisfied that such a disability actually exists, then court might accept his application. And in another case, the court also has the discretion to remove a liquidator after recording reasons. So notice of the appointment of liquidator and creditors meetings resolution has to be sent to the registrar of SECP, and it has to be filed within 10 days of the passing of the resolution, and a separate consent from the liquidator shall also be filed along with such a notice. Then section 364 states about the fixing of liquidator remuneration. We have already covered this in our first part of this lecture, and therefore at the cost of repetition, we should know that either the remuneration of the liquidator will be based on the percentage from the sale of assets, and he will pay such a remuneration from the realization of the assets and the amount which is received from the sale of such assets. The percentage can vary from case to case, and it is generally from 2% up to 5%. But court naturally considers the size of the company in deciding such a matter. Then in subsection 2, the remuneration of the liquidator can be a monthly allowance which he will be entitled to be paid for 1 year, because the liquidator is required to conclude all the proceedings of voluntary winding up within 1 year. Then the powers of the boards are seized as long as a liquidator is appointed, and the board have limited powers only to the extent that they can issue a notice for resolution to wind up, and for the appointment of the liquidator himself, and they can also have the power to file consent of the liquidator because it is required under the Companies Act. Furthermore, the creditors by their consent may sanction continuance of any of the powers of the board. Then section 366 allows the replacement of the official liquidator in the case of death, resignation or otherwise. The reasons we have seen prior to this section, that liquidator might leave his office, but he has to do that by the consent of the court, and under section 366 it is a prerogative of the creditors that if a liquidator is no more, then they have a choice to appoint another liquidator, and again they will have the consent of the new liquidator before his appointment. Then section 367 states that a provision of section 356 will also apply to the creditors winding up, and even in this case of creditors winding up, the liquidator shall have the discretion to accept shares as consideration for sale of any property of the company. Then section 368 is the exact copy of section 358, which allows the liquidator to call a meeting of the company as well as of the creditors. So we have already explained section 358 in our first part of this lecture, and therefore a reference can be made to the recording of the first lecture to understand this provision. When the liquidator completes all these proceedings, and then he will prepare a final accounts of the company, and such account has to be audited from the auditors. He will prepare a report of the winding up, and in which he will show that all the assets of the company has been sold, and its debts are fully discharged, and in case if there is anything left, or I mean if in a situation where liabilities are beyond the assets, he will state such facts in this report, and then the liquidator will summon a meeting of the shareholders of the company as well as a separate meeting of the creditors of the company, and these meetings will be conducted within 60 days from the closing of the financial year of the company, and the annual general meeting or the meeting or the general meeting to be called by the liquidator has to be called in the manner as given under section 152, and section 132 is regarding annual general meeting, and all the process has been explained in this section. And in these meetings of the members as well as of the creditors, the liquidator shall also lay before these meetings the audited accounts consisting of financial statements, the receipt and payment accounts, the auditor's report, and his own report, and all other details regarding the dealings and conduct of the company during the proceedings of the winding up. So all the above disclosures has also to be made to the contributories or the people who are And upon such a return being made within 1 week after the date fixed, then subsection 5 requires that if a quorum is not available on both the meetings of the members as well as of the or the creditors, then the liquidator shall file his report under subsection 4, but he will also make a disclosure to the registrar that he duly convened the meeting, but members or the creditor did not choose to attend that meeting, and therefore and all the liquidators need to tell the SECP or the registrar is that he has duly convened the meeting and he will file the report and account in the specified manner with the SECP, and such a meeting will be deemed to have been duly conducted, and the requirement of subsection 4 shall be deemed to be complied with. So once the registrar received the report under subsection 4 or under subsection 5, he will register all the documents and shall issue a certificate to that effect that the company has been duly wound up by the liquidator, and his issuance of certificate will be a proof of the fact that the company shall be actually dissolved. However, a period of 90 days has been given, that during such period the liquidator might can file an application to the court, or any other interested person can file an application to the court that such a dissolution should revert. However, it can only be possible if an application is filed with the court, and only after the satisfaction of the court the dissolution of the company can be deferred. Then in section provisos to subsection 6, if the registrar scrutinized all the documents which has been filed by the liquidator after conducting the proceedings of the winding up, and if it is found to the registrar that any actionable irregularity has been committed, then he might take an action in accordance with the provisions of this act, and the registrar might initiate proceedings under the Companies Act, or he can also reject the report of the liquidator. Then in second proviso, as we have discussed, the court has the power to defer the dissolution of the company if an application to that effect has been made by any interested person, or liquidator might make such an application. then court has the power to pass an order to the effect that the dissolution of the company should be deferred. And under subsection 7, if such an order has been made by the court, then that relevant person is duty bound that he will file the copy of the order to the registrar of SECP within 14 days after such an order has been passed by the court. And lastly, under subsection 8, if liquidator fails to comply with any of the requirement of this section, then he will be liable to pay a penalty of level 1 on the standard scale.